Hey everyone, welcome to the Representation Station. We have a special day for a very special guest. Today is Wednesday, June 17th, our normal time, 6 p.m. Mountain. We are joined by the illustrious Drew Cox of Indiana. He's a lifelong Hoosier. He is currently the Democratic nominee for Congress, heading into November with fire under his pants. He just beat a field of, I think, 8 members. He is a Marine. He is a lifelong educator, like our wonderful Mr. Matt Beat here. And he's running the race of his life. I think this is your first time running for Congress, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And it seems like you're off to a good start. So, Drew, would love to hear a little bit of your story. Obviously, I'm sure you've got some things rehearsed at this point, and would love to hear a little bit about you and what brings you to the race. The why question: why are you here? Would just be wonderful to hear.
So the why is, I'd say, when the administration began. First of all, thank you, Walter, for having me. I really appreciate that. Thank you for the intro. Um, I I saw, as all of you did, saw ICE terrorize our own citizens when this administration began, and ICE's budget went up like almost tenfold all of a sudden, and this organization is not adhering to basic law enforcement agency standards. So, making them produce judicially signed warrants, making them accountable to Congress, and stating new leadership. It seems like right now they're an organization that's being weaponized by the government to terrorize blue communities and communities of color. So that's one thing that really made me want to jump in the race, is seeing our own citizens um, feel the effects of that weaponization. But there are so many other things. I think a main issue that kind of permeates through our whole campaign is money in politics. So since 2010, you've got the disastrous Citizens United ruling, and we've seen just more and more big money get funneled into every race. Every single congressional race is controlled by big money. I'm going up against one of the richest members of Congress. And when I go around to the district and ask, do you know who your representative is? Most people do not know who their representative is. That's conservatives and Democrats. So the theme of our campaign is like, where's Baird? The guy I'm going up against, his name is Jim Baird. Um, and so I go around and I try to meet as many people, and I have difficult conversations sometimes with folks that have been Republican their whole lives. And I have a conversation with them, and I talk to them about what I'm trying to accomplish. And I'm not trying to run for just Democrats. I'm running for everybody that lives in the district. I'm running for the people that get up and put their pants on and go to work and have to take their kids to school, and people that don't necessarily benefit from a data center being put in their backyard. I'm running for people that don't have as much of a voice in an age where now people can funnel unlimited amounts of money into candidates, and that just creates a very lopsided society that doesn't work equally for all of us. That's the short version anyway.
Yeah, how about we
Awesome.
learn more about your district, though? The fourth congressional district of Indiana is where you're at. Of course, uh, you teach at Purdue.
Yep.
You live in West Lafayette,
I
right?
live in I live in Lafayette. Purdue's in West Lafayette,
Lafayette.
though, just across
Oh,
the
okay.
river,
Across
just
the
across the
river.
Wabash. Yeah,
Uh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm from East Central Indiana, Henry County, rural Henry County, and I've been in Lafayette. First came here in 2016 for a adjunct teaching position, and that job got eliminated after a few years, and then so I went to University of Illinois, and I still had some GI Bill left, just a little bit, and I got a doctorate in music at the University of Illinois, and then I returned to Purdue for teaching. So I've been here now for about 6 or 7 years total, but I bought a house. It feels like home. I really like it here. And it is my first time running for office, unless you count some stuff in high school. Student body president maybe, and my no. I was elected in some small capacity, but it was a big leap for sure. I I thought that I'm not necessarily well suited for a lot of other positions, maybe like county commissioner, clerk. There's some things down smaller offices that people were like, you should try that. And I was like, I think I represent a lot of people. I grew up, farming. I was in the Marine Corps, was in Afghanistan. My mom's is starting her 37th year of elementary education next year. So I feel like I relate to a lot of people. And so that's why I decided to run as a representative. Felt like that's where I was best suited.
And the 4th Congressional District is, for those trying to visualize it in your head, if you're just listening to this, this is west and northwest of Indianapolis. Mostly, I know everybody just...
Too.
Oh, a little south. Okay.
It's like a teardrop on the west side of Indy.
There you
Does
go.
it include Gary? Or is Gary too far west for you?
Gary's too far north.
North, yeah. But, this is according to the well-respected Cook Partisan Voting Index, this was an R+15 district last year. So my question is, what have you noticed as far as vibe shifts over the past year in terms of frustrations, especially with farmers, with folks who have been impacted by federal funding cuts in your district?
Yeah, and here's the thing. One thing we're messaging about right now is we haven't fully felt the effect of funding cuts yet. We're getting ready to. The big beautiful bill is going to kick us in the teeth in January, and so we need a new Congress to fix that. Farmers, my dad's a 4th generation farmer. Farmers don't want handouts. Farmers want the economy to work for them. So treating countries like China as adversaries and then losing a permanent possible market share of soybeans is not any sort of solution. And then also, the war in Iran has caused all kinds of international shipping problems. So fertilizer, fuel, that's obviously going to take the price up. And when you're a small farmer, you just don't have the purchasing power. If you're a big farmer, if you have lots more capital, your input cost per acre is going to be better. It's going to be more favorable. If you also need to count other things that are not technically input costs, like the cost of equipment. If you want to go buy 2 combines, you can get the price of 2 combines down. But if you're a small farmer, you don't have that power. You don't have the ability to negotiate and to get deals. So it's just going to squeeze smaller farmers. And we're seeing, I think in this year alone, we've experienced more farm bankruptcies than the last 4 years combined. And we're only halfway through 2026. So farmers are feeling it. I've had conversations with farmers. I had a conversation with one the other day, and it started out, the conversation was, oh, what do you do? And I was like, well, it's like, I'm running for Congress, and I'm running against Jim Barrett. He's like, wait a minute. What party? I'm like, I'm running as a Democrat. And he's like, I'll never vote for a Democrat. Flash forward 3 hours later, he's like, you got to have a town hall out here on my farm. And I went out to his farm, and we talked about, geeked out over all of his old farm all tractors, and he's got all this equipment stuff, and he's a local ag mechanic. And so you have the conversations with people, and you have good messaging. I think it's possible to flip this district. It has been red for 32 straight years. Come January, I hope it turns blue.
Yeah, bring up right to repair with that guy. I'm sure he...
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
That one's on that was way more popular for some reason in 2024. In 2026, people haven't been talking about that.
Bigger worries.
Yeah.
Sorry to like monopolize. I do have one more question before I'll open it up to Roger and back to Walter. But obviously, this is our issue. This is it. This is what it's all about here. In my view, I mean, this is the root cause issue that will lead to the first reform that will lead to all other reforms: right to repair, return to the social safety net, term limits, reversing Citizens United, whatever the heck it is. I think it starts with uncapping the House. And so I want to thank you again, Drew, for adding it to your platform. Also, congrats on winning your primary, because this has not been easy. You're up against big money. So I do have to say, though, I think part of your appeal, part of your success is because of your open-mindedness. And I feel that may have something to do with the fact that you're a teacher, you work with younger folks all the time, and it was one of your young campaign folks that reached out to me and enthusiastically saying, yeah, we're going to get Drew on board with this platform. So I just want to ask, like, what are the vibes specifically with those under the age of 30? Because I know a lot of under 30-year-olds are kind of doomers, and it really bums me out. So maybe we can try to spin this in a optimistic flavor.
We've attracted a lot of young folks. And so like yesterday we had a meeting in Boone County Democrats, and there were a lot of people there. And Bo Bai, Secretary of State candidate, was there. And then there were a lot of state senator and representative candidates. And you look over at our table and there are like 6 or 7 20 to 24-year-olds, like with wearing shirts, and it's a lot of really good energy. We're attracting as many people as possible. The thing that we're up against is, even still, the voting numbers, just the lower you go in age, the turnout is just really bad. So we want to attract a huge volunteer force, but also we have to figure out how to get people to the polls and make them feel important, and make them understand that their vote is important, that they're important, that what they do is important, and to not just give up and say, whatever happens to me, happens to me. Because that's what the government is doing right now. They're not doing stuff for us. They're doing stuff to us. And it's starting to be normalized. And it's almost seems like it's cool to not participate. It's like it's uncool to participate in this process. And I'm trying to do all I can to change that. To change that narrative. It's not good.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Aiden, who was one of your volunteers who first reached out. Also your campaign manager, Colin. But I will say, like, as those of us who are older, when I say older, I mean 40 plus. I do feel like if we're in a position of privilege, we have an obligation to do things on young people's behalf, because in their defense, I mean, they're screwed. Gen Z is so screwed. They have no why would they be optimistic? So I totally get it. So I feel like it's up to those the last generation who was able to buy a house, which I caught it just at the edge, 2010, Great Recession. Remember those days? The prices went down because of the recession. I was lucky to catch it. So like elder millennials, I feel like were the last group that had a chance at the American dream. Anyway, I'm going to talk too much. I'm going to send it back to Walter. Oh, he's not even paying attention.
Thank you. No, yeah, I am paying attention.
Boy,
I'm multitasking. I'm a multitasker. I'm here and I'm here and I'm here. This is great. And I think connecting with young voters obviously very important. I mean, as you mentioned, Matt, this is an R+15 district. So, the idea of getting you elected, Drew, is, I mean, it would be monumental. I mean, just frankly speaking, right? I mean, it really would be. And so, I think part of what I want to do here today, using our time, I'm a Republican. My other 2 cohort here are Democrats. It's part of the reason I wanted them here with me, to make sure I wasn't being too unfair.
I'm an independent.
Roger's not. Okay, there you go.
I've never
Roger's
been a Democrat, but
I'm an independent too.
Years.
I think
I'm an independent too.
I think they voted for more Democrats than I have. So part of what I want to do is think about, how do things shift between your primary and November. I think you've been broadly characterized as being somewhat of a populist. And Jim Baird is, I think, 80 years old. I think one thing that he has going against him, he's 80, and so he's been in the House now for what is it, since 2019, and as far as I can tell, he hasn't done a ton. Um, but are you planning kind of a campaign of like positivity? Here's what we're going to do affirmatively, or are y'all going to have to really go after and attack him? Is there have you talked about kind of that sort of strategy? And if you don't want to disclose things, obviously you don't have to. I'm just kind of interested in how do you think about winning an R+15 district, or is it just you're just going to knock doors and talk to people one on one, every day for the next 5 months? I'm just fascinated by the journey you're about to embark upon.
We have a plan of knocking 3,500 doors a week. I'm gonna call. I just got a hold of some software that we paid for that gives you a list of Democratic donors, people that have donated to Democrats, and it's a big, huge list, and it's got people that have donated, 200 and 500 and very low amounts. And so I'm going to be calling the people that have donated big bucks personally, and I plan on making like, I don't know, 100 calls a day. So there's going to be a really robust ground game going on, because this district, which we need to uncap the House because I got 800,000 people to get to.
Yeah.
Not as many voters, I know, but which I would like to go back to that at some point. I had some more ideas about uncapping the House that I built into my campaign based on going out and talking to people, because like
Okay.
Matt said, like I'm open to suggestions. I don't really have really an agenda. I have the idea that our representatives are not accessible. Our government's not accessible. Our voice means nothing. Teachers' voices, janitors, factory workers mean nothing to our elected officials. That's kind of why I'm doing this, and I have some ideas about uncapping the House. But messaging like Jim Baird, the guy is a honorably discharged Army veteran who lost his arm in Vietnam, and I have immense respect for that. I don't understand how he votes against veteran interests. That's something that we talk about. Like, for instance, the Major Richard Starr Act, which he was an author or co-author of. That bill has been stuck in committee for years and years. And this bill basically, if you get medically retired before 20 years in the military, you can't get your pension and your disability. You have to get one or the other. So this bill says you can get both your pension and your disability. It would cost like, I think, $1 billion a year. While you're saying this bill which was stuck in committee, a discharge petition finally was filed recently, and so it got a bunch of signatures, but Jim Baird for some reason did not sign the discharge petition for this bill that he authored or sponsored. So now that in the last maybe week or so, now that bill has been rolled into the Taking Care of Veterans Act, which is going to push this bill forward, but it's going to cut future benefits for people that have tinnitus and other things. So it's going to be cutting something else. It's basically our way of retooling VA healthcare and saying we're not appropriating any more money for it. We're just going to try to cut somewhere else. But at the same time, Jim Baird is a rubber stamp for $1.5 trillion in defense spending next year. $1.5 trillion in defense for 1 year of military budget, or $1 billion a year to give people their full benefits. I mean, there's just such hysterical inconsistencies and it doesn't make any sense. People, regular folks like me just don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, it really is kind of astonishing, and it is. He's Army and you're a Marine, which I know there's a little bit of rivalry there. But but
Yeah.
you know, when I look at somebody who's 80 years old, and I think about the job of a congressman who is representing 800,000 people, to me, it's like, should an 80-year-old perhaps be in the Senate? Maybe, but the Congress is meant to be a place of youth and of deliberation and kind of this cacophony of ideas. And so, I love that you have new ideas, and so I'd love to hear them. One of the things that strikes me, or I've talked about a lot, because I've represented a number of veterans in my legal practice, is how difficult it is for veterans to get kind of that um, the responsiveness within the VA, right? That the VA has kind of gone up and down, and different people across the United States have different experiences, but really the customer service there, like with all of our federal government, is not that great. It's one of the reasons I think we should uncap the House, and so I don't know if you want to talk about how you see uncapping the House impacting veterans, but or other ideas that you have. I'll just kind of give you the floor to go into that, and then Roger, I'll turn to you after that.
I think uncapping the House would ultimately be good for veterans. Like I was saying earlier, I take suggestions. I don't have a huge ego in this whole thing. I want to learn more. I always am trying to learn more. So I met with someone who who hipped me to the idea of multi-member districts, and I was like, oh, the idea of multi-member districts. It's like I never considered that before as a way of possibly uncapping the House. Particularly if you consider you've got, like, my district's been red for 32 years. You've definitely got Democrat districts that have been red or blue for 30 years. You've definitely got very unhappy people in these districts that have been on the other side. So one way of addressing that would be, two representatives in this district. That might give you your minority voice from time to time. Republicans in California, that might give them a couple more, handful of more seats in the House. So I think that would work out for everybody. And yeah, it would definitely work for veterans because the we would appropriate more money. I think we would have a little bit more progressive tax code if we had more people in the House. We'd have a system that's more equitable for everyone, I think.
Roger, I'm gonna let you jump in if you've got any specific questions, and I'll
Yes,
go
I
around
have
the
some-
horn
I
of
have-
Matt, and I'll come back to me.
I have some questions. I'll start off though. Drew started by thanking us, so I'm going to thank Drew for filling out, or at least having his campaign staff fill out the Ballotpedia questionnaire and including Uncap the House in your Ballotpedia questionnaire. That's great. I'll start with
You're
a softball question. I gather you're a percussionist. Is that you have a doctoral degree in percussion studies?
Yeah, it's doctorate in jazz drum set.
Jazz drum. Okay, and so
Wow.
is it? And I was going to ask, which is your favorite percussion instrument and why? Sounds like the drum kit is.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I play mostly drum set, but for my master's, I did percussion. So I was kind of classical percussion, and then I kind of got the idea that I'd be super competitive in this really difficult world of teaching if I kind of switched to drum set, and so I could be teaching drum set and percussion. Um, and then I end up teaching like music history and rock history and jazz history at Purdue, and drum set. But
Okay.
but yeah, drum set is probably my favorite.
Are you a PhD or a DMA?
DMA.
DMA. All right. And I'll move off of that. Oh, it's somewhat related. We have something in common, two things in common. Actually. We both attended community college at some point, and we both have taught college at some point.
All right.
So I'm interested in your thoughts on the education systems in America, right, and where the community colleges fit into that. What's your view of educational policy?
On a state level, like our state, I don't know exactly where all you guys are, but Indiana, we have some practices that I disagree with heavily. One is taxpayer money can go into charter schools. Our voucher system that we had used to be needs based. It used to be utilized more so by students of color, and now the needs based criteria has been eliminated, and now the voucher system is
Being
not at all.
abused.
Yeah, it's being completely abused.
Same in North Carolina. Same.
So that's a state level issue. At the federal level, I think that federal funding, Title I funding being tied to standardized testing is an obvious terrible result. Like you want to give schools funding if they adhere to your standardized tests, and you've got like my mom's teaching class of like 25 fifth graders, most of the vast majority of which don't have both parents in their home, and you're tied, your performance is tied to this standardized testing, and your money is the school's money is tied to that. And standardized testing is like not, it doesn't lead to critical thinking. It squashes imagination. It's like the school environment is teaching for the test, teaching little kids how to take a test, and so there's no critical thinking involved. So I think a strong Department of Education that ensures, they've got like 500 lawyers. So I think that a strong education system in which we don't make people take standardized tests, I would really love to get rid of that entirely. I don't know one person that likes standardized testing being tied to Title I funding. That's probably the biggest one right there.
Okay. Well, I'll step back and let somebody else go, and I'll come back later.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in here. I know if going back to representation, which I think is the first problem we need to solve before we solve any other problem. I think we're even wasting our time talking about any other issue. What needs to happen in addition to, you mentioned multi-member districts, so maybe proportional representation, uncapping the House. What other related representation reforms would you like to see put in place? I've even heard some really outside the box ideas that I might throw at you after you answer this question.
So increased representation?
Like just, reforms specific to representation other than uncapping the House. And you mentioned multi-member districts.
We already talked about it a little bit, but yeah, overturning Citizens United, getting the huge money out of politics. And this might be possible because we're seeing some races which people are lopsided. They're getting outspent heavily and they're still winning. So I predict that we will, even if we achieve our goals of spending, we will likely still be outspent. But I think it's still going to be possible. Besides, uncapping the House, multi-member district, having two representatives per district, reforming the big money and making it so you can't indirectly funnel millions and millions of dollars into one candidate, like the race, having some sort of limit on that, like the race in Kentucky, Thomas Massey's race and Ed Gallrein, their race was like the most expensive House primary in the history, and the amount of money that came from Kentucky. I would be in support of some reform that made, people that are living in that district making their dollar mean, essentially more than someone's dollar that comes from outside of that district. How
What
that
do
would
you think
look.
of Hawaii's plan to do that, where they've passed law that says corporations can't donate to political action committees if they want to do business in Hawaii. What do you think of that plan?
I'm going to have to look that up. That sounds good, though.
Montana has done something similar. I think they've got it as a ballot referendum to add to their constitution, actually, this year.
More ballot referendums would be good.
Oh, don't even get me started, dude.
Yeah.
Since 1917, citizens in North Carolina cannot do ballot referendum. Only the legislature can put stuff on the ballot.
Yeah, same here in Kansas. Yeah. That's why
More than 100
marijuana is
years
not legal.
now.
That's why marijuana is
Yeah.
not legalized here. Like the polls all say 65 to 70% approval, but it will never get passed because the legislature here does not want it to happen. Yeah, there's a number of reforms we could talk about, though. I mean, what's fascinating to me is that we're actually having these conversations. Like I heard Pete Buttigieg talking about ideas like he even mentioned uncapping the House, expanding the size of the Supreme Court, talking about term limits or age limits for members of Congress, making Puerto Rico a state, DC a state. I know that at one point, not that long ago, this was all radical stuff, but because we've shifted so far towards authoritarian, now it feels like the pendulum's going to swing right back. It already is. We are ready for dramatic reforms.
The fourth turning.
Well, yeah, I mean, the last time in history, I mean, I'm a history guy. I feel like we are overdue for a period of a lot of reforms in a short period of time. Last time we really had that was the 1960s and into the 70s. It kind of, with the ERA almost being added to the Equal Rights Amendment being added to the Constitution, that got cut just short. And then after that, Reagan came in. I feel like my entire life we've been in a conservative era, which conservatism is fine. I think you need to have conservative periods in history. Like you need to put the brakes on sometimes, but I feel like the brakes have been on for so long that yeah, we need to have a lot happen. So what are your thoughts kind of on that, Drew?
Yeah, I think we are overdue, and I think it could really start in November. I'm definitely in support of term limits. I'm in support of expanding the Supreme Court. A lot of, actually, interestingly, I mean, what I've done to this campaign is literally ask people what's important to them and just kind of make that, like I go somewhere and I'm like, so I've been talking about term limits, and I said, I think that my personal view is like 18 years. So you can do a combination of like 3 Senate terms, 9 House terms, any combination thereof. You can't go past the 18-year mark. And I was like, well, shoot, though, let's do a poll. I mean, like, whatever people in the district want. So we put a poll out, and we're like, how long do you think people should be able to serve in Congress? And the overwhelming majority was 12 years. So I was like, okay, looks like I'm doing 12 years then. And that's kind of how I'm running this campaign.
You are a populist.
Yeah, you can call me what you want.
It shouldn't be a dirty word, though. It's like populism is a style. When we talk about policies, that's different. Like I just think that word is kind of like, socialist. It doesn't really mean anything because people have different definitions of it.
Yeah, it can be right or left. It can be
right.
Yeah, it doesn't mean a whole lot, I guess. But I mean, if I'm a populist, that's fine. I'm basing everything off of people are down and out and they don't have a voice, and so I'm like trying to say I'm gonna do whatever it is that you guys want to do, unless it's like terrible, then I'm not going to do that.
So on that note, have you run a poll on what the constituents of of Indiana's 4th district would like as far as an uncap? Is there a ratio or a number of members in the House that your constituents have said, or have you not run that poll? And I guess if not, do you kind of have something in your gut that you're running with right now?
Well, the multi-member district as a solution to uncapping is something that's just very recent. That one we haven't sent a poll out or gotten any data on. We've gotten some data on some other things, and off the top of my head, I can't remember what they are. One thing I remember was we sent some surveys out, and one thing that it surprised me that people didn't care about at all was working across the aisle, which I thought was kind of strange. But I also can't remember exactly who was targeted for this. We paid a consulting firm or someone, and they sent out a bunch of surveys to people in the 4th district. So I
Well,
wish
so even if we have two members per district, so is your idea with a multi-member district basically it's just double the size of the house, like just two members per current district?
that's like the easy first step idea. I mean, you
Okay.
could make that 3, but I'm like,
Well,
I'm not sure how quickly and how fast can we uncap the house? Like that's something I
yeah.
need to ponder a little bit more. Like, are we ready for 435 multiplying that times 3? Like, I think we could be. I think people might be weary of that. Where are we going to put everybody in DC, or how are we going to pay for their salaries, even though it wouldn't be,
Right.
probably wouldn't be too much. You're talking about a 1.5 trillion war budget.
And we have answers for all that.
Yeah, I was gonna say so because I spend a lot of time speaking to Republicans about this, what I'll tell you is that one of the big benefits of uncapping the House is that you have better oversight of the executive branch, which currently has over 4 million non-DoD federal bureaucrats. And I spent time in House oversight, and it's a joke, right? Currently, the House really can't oversee what the executive branch is doing just because it's a numbers game, right? There's 40,000 staffers in both the Senate and the House with members overseeing 4 million people, and the budget differential also is just like insane. And so, what I think one of the benefits is, if you uncap the House, is you can actually move some of that expertise into the House for better oversight. But also, I think you could balance the budget with it, right? I think you could actually uncap the House, add a bunch of members and staff, and you could actually spend less money, because you basically, instead of duplicating the effort of the executive branch, you could actually take some of what has been delegated over to the executive branch back into the legislative branch. I like the idea of 2 members per district. I've heard, and I haven't gone and found this study, but as educators, I think you'll like this. There's been a bunch of studies, obviously, on the optimal student to teacher ratio, and I think, Drew, this is something you should talk about, right? Is like, what's the optimal size of a classroom, right? And it's like, is it one teacher per 20 students? Is it one teacher per 50 students? Is it one teacher per 2,000 students? Right? Like, there is some happy medium. You actually don't only want generally one student. You want you want a cacophony. You want some of that disagreement. You want some of the challenges, and you want some of the disagreement amongst your cohort. And there has been some research that suggests that it's something like 2 teachers per 30 students is kind of the optimal ratio, because you have one teacher that can handle a disagreement while the other teacher continues to teach. So I think that kind of plays into your multi-member district argument. But I think there is some data to support that. There's obviously also data to support the cube root rule. I do like the simplicity of just like, let's take the current districts and let's just add a member to each district, and then you basically have all of them. And I know that would play fairly well in Wyoming, despite being deeply red, because then instead of 1 member, we suddenly have 2, right? So then that could be your denominator, right? Essentially, it's 1 for 225,000 people. If that is actually your denominator, then you're probably going to add a little bit more to other districts. But I think that's a simplicity here. I think there is something to that. The other thing that I'll say, because you're past your primary, right? And so I learned this when I was in poli-sci 207 or whatever. It's like you get past the primary and you've won your camp. Now you have to go and win the other camp by being slightly more moderate in these different ways. And what I would say is, as a Republican, as I think about other reforms, I want to trust the people making the reforms, right? Like if you're going if you're going to increase the size of the Supreme Court, or mess with the Supreme Court in any way, or if you're going to change the budget in some substantial way, if you're going to change committee structures or the rules, or if you're going to think about term limits, which I think all of these are really good, important things that we should grapple with, and we probably do need a flurry of reforms, especially in the internet age. I mean, right now, Congress is debating FISA and those reauthorizations. Well, we haven't had a constitutional amendment since the invention of the internet, so query whether or not something is also needed there. In all of those cases, my view is it's like, good in, good out, or at least you have that chance. Bad in, bad out. And so the, reforms conducted by our current Congress are just so unlikely to be palatable to me. And so I would suggest that you work on your team at instead of having uncapping. I looked at your website at least last week. Uncapping the House was last. And what I would suggest is make uncapping the House first, right? It's the first thing that you talk about with every single Republican, and the rest of it, it's like, well, let's uncap the House, and like these are the things on my bucket list to talk about with this new class of congressmen that we can all trust, right? Or we have a better chance of trusting, because I think ultimately trust is it is the commodity that you can't create, and that is in very low supply, high demand. And I think that, for a plus, R plus 15, it's like thinking about getting across the aisle. I talked to, again, a ton of Republicans, and I think there is a lot of Republican support for something like this, where you're qualitatively changing the type of representative and the type of person who's attracted to a House race, and you potentially get these reforms in a way that people can they can trust, and and I think obviously you can continue to play the a check on the unhinged executive, and that I think that goes all the way back to Biden, though, right? I think you can talk about hey, who was in charge when Biden was in the Oval Office, right? And who is in charge now? We've got these 80-year-olds running the world, and are they in coaches mentis? Because it's unclear to me. I think, and being a young guy, I think that hopefully you can get the young people out to vote, and it's an incredible opportunity. And so I realize that wasn't a question and more of a diatribe. So I apologize.
Hey, you should
I
bring
want to
up.
step in and disagree slightly.
Go ahead.
I want to make one quick disagreement. I had the same thought about Uncap the House being last on the list, both on his website and Ballotpedia, and I even wrote down it should be first. But then I changed my mind, and this is the reason. It's to us, it's not a novel concept, but to a lot of voters, a lot of constituents, particularly in rural areas, it's going to be a novel concept they've never heard of before. If you put that first on the list, that's going to have an impact on their ability to digest everything else on the list. I believe Uncap the House, like Matt says, it's whatever particular governmental reform you support, your odds of success improve when we uncap the House. It should be first. But that's not how he's going to win the election, by putting a novel concept out there at the top of the list that his constituents are going to struggle to recognize and comprehend, and it's going to muddy the rest of his message. That's why I disagree. Just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Well, and Drew, maybe if you could tell the audience, and maybe Roger and Walter don't know about it, but about Take Back Congress and your involvement with them, because I feel like that might be the better issue. Like, these are issues that are bipartisan,
Yeah. So that's a pack that I'm in that has a few different Take Back Congress has like congressional term limits, overturning Citizens United, no stock trading. So there are a lot of things that I have to abide by to be in that group. Congressional stock trading, that's one that's got like some bipartisan support. It's a rare bipartisan one, and also there's a rare intersection with libertarians and Democrats right now. They're trying to get rid of these small local town councils. They're trying to consolidate municipalities and towns and get rid of, all these county council, and they think it's going to save money. It's not going to save any money. And libertarians definitely don't like it when you come in and you disrupt their small town council and say that you're going to merge with this county over here. So that one has some opportunity for bipartisan support. But Take Back Congress is one that's got several different holds judicial ethics for the Supreme Court. There's a lot of good stuff on there that us regular populist grassroots candidates are all in support of, because we're not owned by big money and we can do whatever we want.
Yeah, another issue is the data centers. I think we've seen a bipartisan backlash against that. AI in general, special interest lobbying. I mean, there's a lot of opportunity right now. The Epstein files, that's a bipartisan thing. People want those investigated. So, I mean, Drew, you know what to bring up to these Republican voters, and you never really have to bring up that you're Democrat until they ask you. You just don't even bring it up. I mean, because obviously there's a branding problem with the Democratic Party. They're almost as unpopular as Republicans. That's why some of the people I've endorsed just said, screw it, I'm just going to run as an independent, like Dave Bouchal up in Iowa, who's essentially like more like his campaign is much more like yours, Drew, but you wouldn't know it. He's just trying to get away from that brand. So yeah, it's about the branding.
Yeah, like I said, I met with that. It was I was at this brewery, and it was me and my friend, and then her friend, my friend's friend, showed up. I didn't know that guy, and he's a farmer, and we were chatting for just a second, and we went out to his farm, and I was like, I think this is gonna go bad. I feel like this is going in a wrong direction, because he's like, what do you do? And then, but after we talked for like 3 hours, started with, I'll never vote for a Democrat, and it ended with, you got to have a town hall out here on my farm, and here's a hat, and here's a toboggan, and here's a sticker, and because my ag mechanic shop, you can have all this stuff. So like having conversations, I've had a lot of conversations with folks that have it started, I'm friends with Jim Baird, and it ended with, I'll take a t-shirt. It's like,
and you don't have to attack. You don't have to attack Jim. He seems like a nice guy, actually. They're like in my state, I attack guys because I think they're kind of evil. But Jim seems like a nice guy. So that means you got to be for stuff. Roger, you got anything else for him? I'm sorry, I'm hogging the time.
No, that's okay. Just reading through some of the other things.
Well, I have a question while you're thinking, Roger. So do you have any debates with Baird? Or is he going to debate you?
Great question, Walter. I love this question. So my vow that I made on the campaign trail before the primary was, we're going to have 16 town halls, one in every county. And I'm going to invite Baird to every single one of those town halls. And because it's, where's Baird? Where's our representative? So I'm going to probably have a chair for me, and I'm probably going to have a chair with his name on it. And I'm going to have a town hall in every single county in this district and invite every single person. Maybe also directly press for debates, but the most important thing for us now is to have these town halls and to be seen out in every corner of the 4th district, and to show them that I'm not here just for one party. I'm here for everybody. So maybe down the line, we might ask for a debate. I doubt he'll ever acknowledge my existence. I don't think I'll ever get an attack ad from him. I don't think that, I think it'll just be like, let's just pretend that Drew doesn't exist. And meanwhile, I'll be over here yapping away and having town halls and stuff, and we'll see how it all pans out.
Until you get a poll that shows it to be a closer race, then you'll get the attack ads.
Exactly.
Exactly.
When he's only +5, the attack ads will start flying, I'm sure.
So here's a question. You reference your support for bringing back, in some cases, some successful programs from the last time our economy was in such a shit. Work progress, administration Civilian Conservation Corps, and then the Green New Deal is a new thing. So my question is, in your potential district, how is your support for those ideas landing with your constituents in that district, with people you talk to?
Well, we talk about the Green New Deal. You can't say that first. You got to talk about how health outcomes in Indiana are. Okay, we have to talk about how many coal ash ponds we have. We have to talk about how our maternity wards. We have like one OBGYN in every per like. No wait, hang on. In 92 counties in Indiana, like only 2/3 of the counties have an OBGYN doctor. And yet we have these bad health outcomes, and our health outcomes are pretty, I think, you can look at coal ash ponds. Coal pollutes the water and it pollutes the air. And the Green New Deal is not just renewable energy and new jobs for renewable energy, but it also has it's mandated higher health outcomes by cleaner water, cleaner air. So talking about the things that the Green New Deal, for instance, would bring, and then you kind of drop the term later down the line. You don't want to, because people are going to be like, Green New Deal, AOC.
Right.
The devil.
Kind of like uncap the House, right? Don't lead with that because it's going to break brains. Slip it in.
Although uncap the House, though, it's so novel, though, that it doesn't have that toxic
That's
association.
True. It's still going to break brains and muddy rob the rest of the message, I think.
Yeah.
Good point.
I had a meeting with a local expert. She's a Republican. I had a 2-hour meeting with her on Monday about renewable energy and about solar farms. And I basically met with her it's like I need to be equipped to make sure I understand how to defend renewable energy. But there are so many reasons to be for renewable energy. There's so many reasons to be against bringing back coal. And one of it's just, besides health outcomes, it's also more expensive. Solar is actually cheaper than coal.
Yep.
And solar, we could look at solar in so many different ways. We can look at solar in incentivizing, putting it on parking lots in cities. Like the earth is heating up, let's put these solar panels above parking lots. Let's putting them on, you can put solar on and existing buildings that have been built without solar panels. You can just add them to things. So we need to be, I think we can be a lot. So I'm talking to people about that a lot, and kind of warming them up to ideas like a Green New Deal, which it just goes much further and raises the standards of water quality and air quality. So yeah,
you don't have to say Green New Deal.
I don't even have to say Green New Deal.
That's right.
Yeah.
And when we're installing those solar panels on existing buildings, we make sure to go in and replace the old lighting fixtures with new LED lighting fixtures, reducing the demand for electricity in the first place, and then providing less expensive electricity on top of that. I happen to be involved in solar, so
yeah,
and
so many
on my roof. Yeah.
What I learned too is I installed a couple solar arrays myself, and the time I did it, I dug a hole and poured concrete, put the channel in, set it up on struts, and I thought that's how most large scale solar was. So that's one complaint that I heard from people is like, well, once you put now we're not talking about on buildings, we're talking about on the ground, obviously,
right.
But so on the ground is very unpopular, and one of the reasons is people are like, well, that's concrete that you're pouring. And this lady that I met, she's like, I've never seen large scale industrial solar used. They just hammer those U channels right into the ground. So when you're done, you just pull them out, and it's not going to it's going to aerate the soil. Actually, you're not going to have to get any. She's like, 1 or 2 times I've seen where there's been an area where we had to pour concrete, but she's like, in my experience, and now kind of moving forward, these solar arrays are being just U channels just going into the ground. It means that they can't go up very high. It means they have to stay low to the ground. But you can put certain kinds of livestock, under that.
Goats.
If
Yeah.
you want a popular workforce program, interstate tunnel system, just to mirror our interstate highway system. This is when I ran my long shot campaign for president. This was the thing that I got the most positive response from in the big money world. There were a lot of people who were like, we kind of like the underground tunnel system, and basically just mirror the Eisenhower's highway system, but have a giant tunnel system. You can put some compute down there. It cools much easier, so you don't need the water. It would be great for a redundant source of electricity, including cables. You could also obviously have more security, so kind of a national defense rather than Department of War, actual Department of Defense spending type activity. So maybe something for you to think about.
I'm typing this. I'm writing this down.
Infrastructure is another bipartisan thing. It's why Republicans who voted against the Inflation Reduction Act and other infrastructure laws that Biden passed, they take credit for it, even though they voted no for them when they were up for vote. It's because infrastructure is something that everybody tends to be like, yeah, I think I'm not going to call the government socialist in this case. I think because that's what government's supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Roads. People love roads. I mean, at the end of the day,
people love roads.
Bridges. Well, exactly. And we have a lot of aging bridges. And it's a great, I think as far as a public works program, having a big achievable goal like that. And frankly, it's also something that there are, certain interests in the underground world that, are across the political spectrum. So
Airports
I really
too. They just had another sinkhole at LaGuardia today. So we got
another one. Another
oh
one.
my gosh.
Another
well,
one.
The FAA is another agency I think that would benefit from an uncapped house. There's they're slipping. The professionalism at the FAA has been world renowned, and we've led the world in aviation safety. And for whatever reason, the last few years we have been in the decline.
Quick question for you, Walter. Real quick.
Yes, Drew.
The interstate tunnel system. Are you talking about there's also a road under the interstate that is public access?
Exactly.
So okay. Just making sure.
You're basically duplicating the interstate highway system underground. That would be the goal. I think in some places it would be adjacent, like a railway, right? But they would roughly mirror the current interstate highway system. Yeah.
Okay.
That seems like that seems unnecessarily large to me. And if we had like 5 tunnels running east to west down, and then controlled access points where you come out of the tunnel to get on an existing interstate to do the last 2 hours north to grandma's house, that seems more efficient to me.
Sounds like a lot of jobs.
Well,
but yeah,
this is all going to be drilled by machines anyway. The big tunnel boring machines, they don't need people.
Yeah.
But another way to market this is how we compete with China, who has clearly taken the lead in infrastructure in the world. So
yep.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we long ago abandoned passenger rail in search of the American vehicle dream, and I think that people understand that there's a balance to be had, and there's a balance in security, and I think having a tunnel system benefits us for a number of reasons, and that is really is bipartisan, right? And one of the big benefits I would say is when you think about the AI data center situation, AI data centers require less cooling underground. And so if you have this big tunnel boring project, you basically have a place to put these AI data centers that is much easier to cool them, and they're out of sight, right? You're not taking up greenfield. And so but it is the type of project that would require the federal government to really jump in. And I think to Roger's point, do we immediately go and duplicate the entire interstate system? No, I mean this is a 100-year project, right? There's at least a 50-year project, and so it's something that you start with, right? You start somewhere and you see how it goes, and you improve along the way. But it's something that has a national security purpose, a commerce purpose, and it is bipartisan.
And by the time we're done in 50 years, we'll have flying cars and nobody will go in the tunnels.
Well, you'll go in the tunnel when we have a giant solar storm.
Yeah, that's true.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, Drew, it's the hour is up. It has been a pleasure to meet you and learn about your campaign in Indiana's 4th. It's actually going to be just fascinating to watch you in your ground game in the lead up to November. There's a lot of time. It's America's 250th anniversary. Despite the fact that you are on the opposite ticket of me, I'm rooting for you all the way and available if you ever want to come and chat offline or online. Happy to do so, and just excited to see where this takes you. And I'll just pass around the horn if anyone has any final words, and then Drew will give you the last word, and we'll sign off for the day. Matt, I'll go to you.
Yeah, sure. Just very excited for your campaign, Drew, and I'm hoping maybe I can make it over to Indiana before November. That town hall idea is really, honestly, that's one of the best ideas you have. Like, although I will say you can add a chair, not just a chair for Baird and for you, but a chair for the constituent, and say, hey, you can sit here too, and then I'm going to listen to you. Because that kind of demonstrates how, I mean, that's the type of candidate you are. You're the type to listen to constituents. And I think it's so
Good
symbolic too. It's so symbolic to what we want. We want better representation. Voters feel like they don't have a voice, and that would be one symbolic gesture at the very least. So anyway, I'm excited.
That would go viral.
So look at this guy. See, he listens.
It's incredible.
But thanks for being here.
I'll say good night and thanks. It was very enlightening and interesting conversation. I'm rooting for you. I don't think I know it. Well, I do know a couple of people in Indiana, but they're in Evansville. Is Evansville in your district?
Oh, that's way far south. That's on the Ohio River.
Okay,
southwest corner.
I thought you were going to say Hawkins.
Well, like Massey's campaign, people from all across the United States can donate. So, Drew, as you sign off here, please tell people where to go and find you and if they want to contribute.
Sure. Well, thank you, Walter, Matt, and Roger. It's been a privilege being on the show. Our website is simple, just drewcox.org. And from there, you can get a link to all the social media websites. And then you can also donate. You can volunteer. You can see where I stand on every issue. Uncapping the House is at the bottom. We'll see about putting that somewhere maybe towards the top. At the end of the day, though, yeah, we are all about equal representation and putting people over profits. That's kind of a slogan that we've been using. We think that we got some moral decay in our government, and our government is more and more concerned with the money that gets them elected, and that's why our Congress's approval rating somehow stays at like 20-some%, and we keep electing the same people. So I think that our campaign is a different voice, is a voice that's very, very engaged with the people that are voting, very engaged with people that are, like I said, put their pants on every day and go to work and take their kids to school. So if you want to learn more, please visit drewcox.org. And again, thank you all for taking the time. I really love a good multi-party chat. Like it's always a little bit more interesting than if you got different representation going on in the podcast. So
yeah,
agreed.
Well, thank you again. And I guess in the spirit of that, Mr. Baird, we cast some shade your way, but if one of your people here and you want to come on the show, we'd be happy to discuss with you. Would be happy to have you and Drew for an informal debate here live on the internet. And to everyone else, thank you so much for being here. Good night. God bless. Go get yourself some representation, and we'll see you next week for a show on the 22nd with Paul Rosenwig. So we look forward to that. Until then, again, have a great night. And folks, just stay on while this uploads.